Okay, we're at the Samach and today's daf is Samach, and we're at the bottom of Samach Zayin base, 3 lines up from the bottom. We're dealing with tzedakah, people who should be giving tzedakah, people who trick people into giving tzedakah, meaning they're not right for tzedakah. So we'll see. Very interesting Gemara. Rav Abba have a tzayir zuzei b'sidurei. Rav Abba, he would go ahead and tie in a suder some type of kerchief. He would try tie money, and he would put it behind him, right? And he would go ahead, like this. The aniyim would have from it. You go ahead and keep an eye out for, I guess, looking for here and there for trickers who weren't deserving of taking it. That was his way of giving tzedakah in a manner that was what? That was how should we say? Say leches. People would know about it. Reb Chanina have hahu anya. Reb Chanina had this ani. The havi rogel l'shadurei le'arba zuzei kol mali shabbata. Every Erev Shabbos he would go ahead and give him 4 zuz. Yom echad shadrinu ne'alei biyad v'sayu. He sent the 4 zuz in the hands of his wife. Asi, she came, and Amralei, like Tzarech, she came and she came back, and she told Rav Abba, she told Rav Chanina, right, like Tzarech, he doesn't need it. So he said, my chazis, what did you see? So his wife said, Shomei, I heard, he said, he said, in which way how are you eating? Somebody asked, how are you eating? It's the kesef, I believe, zahav, and with either silver tablecloths or gold tablecloths. This is supposedly a nani. So Amr said, so Reb Chanina said, Hainu da Amri Reb Elazar, that's what Reb Elazar said. Let's go ahead, and we should go ahead and be machzik toy. We should have a karsa toy for the Ramayim, because they do us a big favor. Without them, we'd be going ahead and we'd be chaytim every day. The fact that we close our eyes and not give tananiyim. So the people who are not deserving of tzedakah doing you a chesed, because now you have an excuse. You have an excuse. I don't give tzedakah because the person I'm giving to doesn't deserve. So you miss a person that does. Since you have some kind of pesach, some type of excuse. Shenemar, the pasuk says, "Yikora alecha el Hashem v'hoyu b'chachet." But now that you have the Ramayim among you, right? They cause us that we can say we thought the person was a Ramay. The Tani Rab Chia ba Rav Midifti, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karchaimer, Kol Hamaylav Eina Mitzadik, and then he closes his eyes from tzedakah, and Kol Hamaylav Eina Mitzedakah, Kiloiv B'Vedis Kechavim. Because how do you know? That's the stuff. It says by tzedakah, he shom lecha pen yedava im levacha leblial, right? It's something that's blial bli omach v'shemayim, which is speaking about tzedakah, and that's a person who's Maila Eina from tzedakah. Because if Hasam, it says by Erni Dachas, Yotzu Anoshim B'nei Blial. So Mala Halan Avodas Kechavim, just like over there by Erni Dachas was Avodah Zara, Afkan over here as well, by what? By closing your eyes to Aniyim, right? So by the Kechavim. So Lamed Schus, fellas, sometimes it's a big nisayan when you're davening and people come around and stick something in your face. And it's a nisayan to work on it, like not to react or whatever. But I think he makes it tough to them. If they're telling the truth, I wish they all would be telling the truth. I wish they all had money, like the meister with the Satmarav, right? Someone told me that the guy came, Satmarav gave him all this everything fit look, and the guy said he's lying, and Satmarav was so happy. Why? They didn't need it. There's 2 ways to looking at things. So from this Gemara, you see clearly that a person makes a type, a person who doesn't need the money and is collecting it anyway. So that's his problem. That's his problem. But for us, it's a big chesed. That's a big chesed. And Satan's, you always you have a curse of Kodesh Baruch Hu, that Baruch Hashem, you're not in that situation. There's always a good machshava to think about that situation, because it's a situation that if you're not a thinking person, it lends itself to not good thoughts. But if you think about it and you can put a positive spin on it based upon this Gemara one way, and some is like, be back at the Kodesh Baruch Hu that you're not in that position. Baruch Hashem. Tarabanan. A person, again, we're dealing with people who are doing things to get tzedakah. So a guy sees perfectly clear. He's got no problem. He's got perfect eyesight. He went to a doctor in Fair Lawn and gave him mamish great prescription. He saw very, very well. Okay. So in Point Pleasant, we closed down that practice in Point Pleasant, and so and what does he do? He makes himself like he has eye issues in order to go ahead and get money. Someone who bloats his stomach, like he has a stomach problem, or he views himself as like he's a hinkadik, he's a cripple, he's not able to stand on 2 feet. He won't leave this world. Eventually, that will happen to him. Right? Eventually, happen. I'm a kabbalah tzedakah. What about a person who receives tzedakah and doesn't need it? As I said, this is his problem. He'll end up doing that. But he will need. Yeah, he will need. Listen, Rabbi Shalom is the perfect mediator. He knows exactly what to give out. Perfection is his name. Atan Hasam, Masechta Peah. Now, we speak about a niyam. What's the line? What makes you a nani? And this you should always know, guys. It's 200 sus for a year. It's 200 sus for a year. It comes up all the time in Shas. What makes you a nani is 200 sus for a year. So now, this person who has 200 sus, right? If he doesn't have 200 sus, we're not mechayiv him to sell his house. That's klei tashmishoy in order to get to 200 sus. In other words, you want liquid 200 sus, right? Let's say you go ahead and get rid of some of your base necessities, such as a house and your pots and your pans and your plates and so what, right? You're not forced to go ahead and sell that in order to go ahead and get to 200 sus. And therefore, you're able to take leket, shikkur, and peah. This is a Mishnah and peah. Who can take leket, shikkur, and peah? Someone who doesn't have 200 sus. So if you have assets that have 200 sus, you have assets of 200 sus, you would not be required to go ahead and sell them, right, depending on the asset. Is that not true? I'll show you that it's possible that you would have to sell it. Vatanya, a person is accustomed to going ahead and using golden kalim, so sell them and use silver kalim. If you used to use silver kalim, sell them, and you lose brass kalim. So you see that a person is. So how can you say you're not mechuyev? Sell it and don't be a nani. So we have three trutzim. Amrav Zavid loy kasha. It depends what you're talking about. Mita b'shulchan. He has to sell, right? You don't have to sell because of the karais, which are where people are makbid, right? Excuse me. Shmita and shulchan. You have a golden bed or a golden table or very fine that you would have to sell. But koisus b'koris that you wouldn't have to sell. Maishna koisus koris deloy. What's the reason that cups and plates you would not have to sell? The Amar, because you could say any kli that's less than that, easily I find derogatory. I find it disgusting. In other words, I was a besser mensch, and for me to eat on something less than that, I find problematic. Masha'en kain yitchayra, the bed and the shulchan. So the Gemara asks right away. So if that's the case, meet the b'shulchan amiya. I'm a loy mekabel lavaya. And also, I'm accustomed to sleeping under such a bed and eating by such a table. So this teretz is not a good teretz. So again, what's a kasha? A kasha is that you told me that a person is not mechuyev to sell to get to 200, so that he shouldn't take leket shikkur payab. I always see you are mechuyev to sell. So what's the difference? So it can't be the shulchan and the tables and the kairos and the kisses, because all of that, the guy wouldn't have to sell it. He wouldn't have to sell it because that's what he's accustomed to. So Amar Rava, the Rabba says, Rava, the son of Rabba, the brisa that says Yechayev to sell is speaking b'machresha de kaspa. He's got a silver plow. Now, don't ask me how a silver plow would work. Silver is a very soft, maybe it's an iron-coated plow with silver, but l'chayra, that he would be required to sell. Why? What's the difference in that between a bed and kalim? Because that's not ishtamshus in his guf. He's not using it for himself, right? Then one's in the ground, it's not direct. The other ones are direct. He's sleeping on the bed, he's eating on the plate, that's more direct. So direct, then you're not mechayev to. Masha'enkin, something that's indirect, that you're mechayev to. That's one teretz. A second teretz, Rav Papa Amar, like Kasha, right? The Mishnah that says that you're not mechayev to sell is speaking, koidim sheyav l'dei giboy. In other words, before, you don't have matayim zuz, you went ahead, you took leket shikkur and peah, therefore they're not mechayev you to sell anything to get to time zuz. And the brisa that says that you have to sell is speaking after the Gavia, that you took leket shikha peya, right? Not correctly. In other words, you had 200 zuz and you took leket shikha peya, then and now to pay back, they'll make you sell. To pay back, they'll make you sell. So that would be the difference. The Mishnah that says that you don't have to sell to get to 200, you can take leket shikha peya, is that you took correctly. Mashenkin, if you took incorrectly, and then you have to sell to make up that difference. That's the. Let's see the last Rashi. The last Rashi before the long Rashi before the Mishnah. That we said that you're not mechayiv meikarakoy. It's going before kishaboy lito leket. When he comes to take leket, because he's an ani, so he's officially allowed. And if he would have sold his kalim, he would have attained the border over the ani line. You're not mechayiv to go ahead and sell it, because with the time he took it, he was an ani. Even he bought himself to leket, Bezdin collected from him. He had 200 zuz, and not the leket shukla shleikidin. And it became known that he was not an ani. Bezdin boy and the goyvini menu. Bezdin will come and collect and make him sell those objects. For the leket shukla pay that he took, he would sell the more expensive items and use lesser ones. So therefore, that would be the mitzvahs over there. Mm-hmm. Okay, the next Mishnah. Now, let's just for a second. It's good to know on Nun Beis Amid Beis, Nun Beis Amid Beis. We spoke about the Nedunya. This was the Mishnah of Banim Dichrin, right? Yeah. Just Banim Dichrin again. That's something not everyone remembers, so I'll say it over again, even though it has nothing to do with us this evening. That a person, we want the father of the bride to give a Nedunya in order to go ahead that people facilitate marriage. They would jump to marry her. He won't be so apt to give it if he knows that if his daughter dies, that his son-in-law will inherit it, and then if he has children from that marriage, and then he remarries another one, the other children, so his nedunya is going to go down. So they may want to take Kesuvos banim dichrin. So that nedunya, again, if the husband dies, it's part of the kesuba, she gets it, right? If she dies, the husband gets it. Good. Now, how much do you have to give? So the Gemara said, you count up from the bottom, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 lines about kama. Up to 10th of your property. So it's going to be really considerable. We saw that in the dunya of Nechunyi ben Akana was $1 million dinarim. I mean, he was worth 10 million. He was worth 10 million dinarim. Still a gold dinarim. This guy was incredibly wealthy. I mean, just based upon the Gemara. Think about it, guys. A tenth. If he gave to his daughter a tenth, he gave her 1 million golden dinarim, which is 25 silver dinarim. So that means that he was worth 10 million golden dinarim. It's an incredible amount of money. You say usually we're not able to go ahead and calculate. Over here we have enough information to calculate based upon our Rabbis. Now, this Mishnah is a difficult Mishnah because it's a little vague. But it's either a two-way machlokes or a three-way machlokes. So let's see what we got. We'll learn the two-way, and then we'll for extra credit, we'll put in the three-way. Yisoima sheisata ima achia midaita, right? Yisoima, meaning she must be a katana. We know from Masechta Yavamis, and we've mentioned 1 million times, if the father's dead, that the Rabbanan gave rights to the mother or brother to marry her off to have the security of a man. And they midaita, meaning she agrees to this marriage. However, they wrote a very, very cheap nedunya, 50 or 100 or 50 zuz. In other words, this is addition to the 200, but this is a very, very small nedunya. The 200. She's able to she's able, when she gets older, to might see whatever is right, meaning a tenth of the property. Abai v'rava, a tenth of the nedunya. She was a katana, right? She was a katana. They married her off. They undersold her, gave a very, very cheap amount. When she gets of age, she's able to go ahead and claim, according to this, a tenth of what the father was worth. Right? Who they gave it. The father's dead. The father's dead. They gave it, and they again. No. I just told you a Gemara, a tenth of the thing. It wasn't violent. It's a tenth. You gave a tenth. You gave a tenth. In other words, Pasha, you gave a tenth. At least a tenth. We'll see. A tenth. Right? We said Asa. It was there was a pasuk. It was a pasuk of Maisa. There was a pasuk there of Maisa. They got a tenth. I think they brought. In the first one. Right. We'll get there. Okay. So according to this, now question. Midaita. Listen to the Chiddush, guys. She accepted this. She's a Ketana. So her mechila is not a mechila. So even though it's a Chiddush, that even though she accepted it, still she can go, we do away with it. Because whatever mechila she was meichel as a Ketana doesn't count. Now, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, im hasi es habasa rishayna, if the father, when he was alive, had married off another child, you don't give her a tenth automatically. You look at whatever the father gave. I guess this is what I was trying to say. You look what the father gave to the first wife, first daughter. In other words, guys, what's this called? This is called an umdina. We're going after, we know that term already. An umdina, we're going after an evaluation. We'll evaluate. If he gave his first daughter, right? Then now, even though he's dead, we could assume he would have given the second daughter the same amount as the first. So Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. The Tanakama says a tenth. That's it. 10%. Whatever it is, 10%. Good. Says Rabbi Yehuda, no. We go after Umdina. The Chachamim Oimrim, Pamayim she'adam ani v'ha'ashir, ay asher v'heni. How could you go after Umdina? You would have to look at his financial status at the time of the first and the second marriage. Is it the same? Right? Therefore, you evaluate the nechasim, the noisim law, and you give it to her. You evaluate the nechasim and you give it to her. So this apparently is a third shita. This apparently meaning we view the property, and whatever the property is, we will go ahead and notice if the guy is not worth too much, we'll go after that. If he's worth more, we'll go after that. So pashut you have. Actually, there are people who say this is also a tenth. That's why they say it's a two-way machlokes. So and the Chachamim are not, and the Tanakama are agreeing. But we will learn for our purposes, we will learn this a two-way machlokes, right? But let's hold off on that until we get to the Gemara. Okay.
Mean that, let's say he did become poor, you have to give a tenth of when he was rich.
No, you do a tenth again.
Really
What? We'll see. Amashmuel. Leparnasa shamim ba'av. Parnasa, meaning pashit for the nedunya. Parnasa is a fancy word for the nedunya. Shamim ba'av will evaluate the father. Now, who does that appear in the Mishnah according to? That's Rabbi Yehuda. Apparently, that's Rabbi Yehuda, right? We go after. So the assumption is that's going to be the final answer. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Nope. Meisive. Habonos ni zainais. They get their mazain, parnasais, and in the dunya, minichse avihen, from the nechasim of the father. Again, two parts of the ksuba, the zainis, remember this Tanai ksuba, and then the dunya, written the ksuba, that they're going to get from the nechasim of the father. Kate said, Ein oimim, you don't say, ilu avia kayim, kach v'kach hoyinaisin la, el shamanes and nechasim v'naisin la. You evaluate the property, and you give it to her. Now, you said two things. You said in the zainis, and you said parnas. Now, my love parnasas habal does it not mean the dunya? Does it not mean the dunya? And it says that that the noistin law that you give according to right the property, and not like and not noistin law. You give a set amount in a chasim, and you don't go after the father. You go after the nechasim. You don't go after umdina. You go after the value of the nechasim. Says the Gemara, no. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak Loi Parnasas Atzma. It means what? It means mezainis. It means mezainis, that the parnasas atzma, the parnasa of her when she's living with her brothers and getting supported from the estate. That's what it means. Now that's problematic because you said two things. You said mezainis and you said parnasa, and now you're telling me parnasa is mezainis. You're telling me it's the same thing. You're telling me it's not an adunya. You're telling me it's mezainis. You learned first nizainis, and then you learn misparnasais. Mashma, it's two separate things. But the way you're learning pshat in parnasa, you're learning that it's nizainis. It says Gemara, no, right? My love, achas parnasas habal, the achas parnasas atzma. One is the nedunya, and one is nizainis. It says no, edvd parnasas atzma. They're both nizainis. So why use two different shainis? Like kasha. The lashon of mezainis is what she eats and drinks. And the lashon of parnasa refers to her garments and I guess and takshitin that she'd get from the estate. But there's both referring to her, not the nedunya of the Baal, and therefore it's not a kasha on Shmuel who said you go after the father, and here it says you go after the nechasim. Tanan, the chachamim ma'imrim, pa'amim now amishna, pa'amim sh'adam ani v'hashir. Now, he was retorting to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, right, whatever the first one got, let's make an umdana and give the second one. Says, what are you talking about? It said, maybe he's not rich anymore. Now, what does that mean? Now, my ani and my yasha, what are you talking about? If you're going to say when it's an ani, it means regarding his property. And Asher is Asher bin Chasim. And Asher refers to what? In the Chasim, meaning at one point in time he was wealthy, and now he's not. Mechlal Tanakama Savar, Afilu Asher v'Hani Kidemekara Yavinallah. You're gonna. This is what are you gonna say, guys? If he's wealthy initially, and now he's poor, the Tanakama is gonna say what? You have to give wealth? Halesle, he doesn't have it. So obviously you can't translate Ani v'Esher in the literal sense, guys. In other words, again. The Tanakama would not say that you're supposed to give somebody that you don't have. This is right what you said. You're not supposed to give somebody you don't have. If you don't have it, you don't have it. Elolav. What does ani mean? Ani is ani bedas. Guys, we met this guy yesterday. This is the guy who takes some tzedakah and yeshla. He has money. Ani means ani bedas. Asher is asher bedas. V'ketani shomen es hanechasim v'noisten la. Alma we say. Lo yazlina and basa umdina. We don't go after an umdina v'tiyufta the Shmuel. V'tiyufta the Shmuel. It's an upslug on Shmuel. In other words, the Chachamim clearly are saying that what a person who makes himself what poor when he's not, or makes himself rich, whatever it is, we don't go after him. Why do we go after? Shaman es chasim. What does Shmuel say? Go after the Av. So that's clearly a stira, right? So the word answers, Shmuel, who Rabbi Yehuda? You're right. You're asking from the Chachamim. Shmuel does not hold like the Chachamim. Shmuel holds like Rabbi Yehuda. That nan Rabbi Yehuda Omer, im hasa basa rishayna, yinasin l'shniya kidera shenas l'rishayna. Right? Who says if you marry off the first one, whatever you gave the first one, you give the second one. So clearly, Shmuel would say you go after the father. So why? Cryptically, Shmuel say leparnasa for nedunya yishamin ba'av. Why doesn't he simply say, since he can't come out like the Chachamim, why does he simply say the halachas like Yehuda that you go after umdina or oimid, right? So it's going to Yehuda have him in a dafka hisia, right? Dafka where he married her off a first one, the gole daite where you have gili das, abaloy sia loy. But if he didn't have a means of going ahead and being oimid because he had not married off a first daughter, I'd say you don't go after umdina. Kamash malon, time of the Rabbi Yehuda, that's lina basa umdina. Loishna asiya, loishna loy asiya. V'haydik tani asiya, lo idea kach the rabbanon. The afagav de asiya, v'gali daita loyas lina basa umdina. Okay, guys, outside. Says the Chachamim. Says the Chachamim. We go after the property. We're going to go ahead, take the property, whatever the property is. If it's a lot of property, we'll give her a very extensive nedunya. If it's not, we won't. What says Rabbi Yehuda? It really depends. It depends on the individual. Good. So therefore, if he had an earlier daughter, married her off, you have an idea of exactly what he would give. And let's go after that. Shmuel clearly says you go after the father, not like the Chachamim. Fred the Gemara, so let's say he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. He says more than Rabbi Yehuda. I would say it's the halachas of Rabbi Yehuda. When do you go like Rabbi Yehuda? Only after when do you go after umdina? Only you have to an umdina de goli. You only have a real umdina, a first marriage. But let's say you don't have a first marriage. In other words, you don't have a reason of being oimed. So then you would think that Shmuel holds like what? The Chachamim, that you go after the property. Kamash Malom, you always go after umdana, even if we don't have a previous umdana to go ahead, a previous a marriage to go ahead and compare to. Nonetheless, we will go ahead and go after umdana. That's the chiddush why he didn't say the halachas like Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda itself. So Taka, if that's the case, if Rabbi Yehuda always goes after umdana, tell me a bigger chiddush. Why limit it to umdana shebegoli with a previous marriage? And the answer is to show us the koyach the Chachamim. Even though this guy, we have Yeshamal Lismaich, what this guy would give, nonetheless, we don't go after it. So the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda is not to limit and say we do not go after umdana. We go after umdana even when there wasn't a first marriage to compare it to. The reason why we learned that case in the Mishnah is to show the koyach of the Chachamim. Despite the fact we have a basis of proof of what the guy would give, we still don't go after that. We're still shaymin the nechasim. Okay, so that's the Gemara. Amle Rav Rav Chisda. Right? Says Rabbi to Rav Chisda, Dashina Mishmech, we dashin in your name, halach Rabbi Yehuda. Halach that we go after umdana, we go after Rabbi Yehuda. Amalei said Rav Chisda, Yehi Rava, maybe Hashem's will, Kolki Hani Mili Mali said Titshu Bishmir. These wonderful things which should be said in my name. Fedgmar mi Amar Rava Hachi. Does Rabbi say that you go after umdana? But Tanya Rebbe Omer, Bas Hanezoinus Mina Achin, a bas that's being provided from the estate. Noiteles Isa Isha Nechasim. She takes what? A tenth in Nechasim. A tenth. But Amar Rava says Rava, Hilchasa Karebi. So Rava, how can you tell me you go like Rabbi Yehuda umdina? Clearly you're saying you're going after 10%. Kasha and Rava. Like Kasha, it's not a Kasha. Had midney, had midney. Right? One is speaking where what? We had an umdina. Right, one is speaking where you had them. The one you didn't have them. The Rashi says, "Hoy deloy amidnei, had Amar Rebbe Isa nechasim that you go after the 10th. B'deloy amidnei la'av." Right, we can't make an umdin in the father. Shaloi gar beinenu. He didn't go ahead and live among us. Loy amadnu al soif daitoi, and we can't be oimen al soif das. In Vatron, if he's a guy who's generous, like Kamson, or he's cheap. In other words, Rebbe's of the opinion you go after umdina when you have an umdina. But if you don't, then you go after 10%. Correct. In other words, we had an umda. We had an umda. Hachanami mistabed amar avada barava ma'isa benasan lo Rebbe echad mishneim asa b'nechasim. Rebbe gave 1/12, guys. I just gave 1/10. 1/12 is less. Chashan adadi elolash mamina had the midney had la midney. When did he give 1/10? There wasn't an umdana. When he gave 1/12, there's no shmamina. So, guys, here's the way the Rishonim speak out. The Rifa speaks out the three sheetas over here. Guys, listen up. Says the Tana Kama in our Mishnah, you always give 10%. Whatever it is, 10%. That's what you give. Good. You always give 10%. Says the Chachamim, you go after what? You go after Mechasim. Now you have Rabbi Yehuda's Shita. In Rabbi Yehuda's Shita, we have Rebbe. What's the difference of Rabbi Yehuda and Rebbe? They're both going after umdana. So listen to the difference. When you have an umdana you can go after, then both Rabbi Yehuda, what happens if you don't have an umdana? You can't be Aimid. If you can't be Aimid, says Rabbi Yehuda, then you go like the Chachamim, you go after the property. Says Rebbe, you go after like the Tana Kama, you go after the 10th and the Mechasim. So it's a hybrid shita. Again, here's I given. The Chachamim, the Tana Kama, 10%. The Chachamim, you always look at the property. Shita is Rabbi Yehuda, and we go after umdana. But only when there is an umdana. Only when it could be oimid what his das was. What happens if it can't be oimid? We don't know this guy at all. We don't know if he's generous. We don't know if he's cheap. Says Rebbe, go like the Tanakama. You go after 10%. Says Yehuda, you go like the Chachamim. You go after the property, what the value is. That's the way we shine and speak out the sheets over here. So 3 of Machlaik is very geshmak. Kufa, we said previously as a question, and now we will analyze it for itself. Kufa, Amar Rebbe. Basan is Zainis Mena Achim. They tell us Isa Nechasim. She gets an adunya of 10%. Amulay Rebbe, the Varecha, according to you, Mishi Yeshle Esa Banai, someone who has 10 kids. Uben. The Ein Lay Ben Lamakam Benais Kolom. No, it's what? You take 10%, you break it up into 10 parts, give it to the girls, and the guy gets nothing. No. So Amalahem kach aniyim. This is what I say. Rishoina noitelis isin achasam. The first girl is going to get what? 10%. Shniya, right? B'masha shayir, but if you'll get 10% of 90, right? With shlishis, you'll get 10% of 80. It goes down progressively, right? Yeah, okay. My chavus is so he's a math guy. I'm a crazy thing. So he goes, so it means that the son will get 35%. And then we found in the art school, yeah, I got 35%. Anyway, so in other words, you break it up. Why are you breaking it up at 10? To know what the son gets. Okay. Now, listen what it says now. And and then they go back and divide it equally, which makes no sense. Fred the Gemara, what are you talking about? On the base. So what does that mean? Each person should take what they get. In other words, you got married first, guess what? You hit the jackpot. You got married second, whatever's left. So why are you going and redividing? Doesn't the haki come out? In bo kulam linase ka'achas. Sounds like a Yavamis case, right? They all kind of come together as one. You go ahead and you divide it up equally. And the whole purpose of this, guys, is to figure out exactly what the son gets. The say a little of Masna, Damra of Masna, and Boli Nase Kulam Kachas, Nightless Iser, Nightly tell us Iser, Echad Iser, the Salkadaitach, Iser Salkadaitach, each person will get 10. Ela Nightless Iser Ke'echad, they take it 10 as one. So what are we doing? If they all come as one, we'll divide it up, and then we'll give the son his piece, and then we'll give each one their own chelik. That's what we're doing, right? Right. Tanabana. Habanois, Bein Bagroi, Achlei Nisu, girls, whether they reached the age of 12 and a half and they didn't get married, Ubein Nisu, whether they married Achlei Bagru, as a Naira or a Katana, they got married. If do Mizanisayim, they lose their Mizanis. We said this before already. However, if do Pranasasan, they do not lose their Nadunya. So again, you have a father's out of the picture. Father's out of the picture. Girl reaches the age of Vaigeres, right? They lose Mizainis automatically. Marries, even if she's not a Vaigeres, loses Mizainis, but in both cases retains the Nadunya. When would they use the Nadunya? Is when they have both. In other words, if they were Nesuin and Vaigeres, the Chayre, then they would lose both. They would also lose their panas. They'd also lose their nedunya. Ketzad, what should they do in order to keep their nedunya? Is they should hire some husbands who might see them panasa and take the panasa. Take it out the panasa. Says the Rishash. I'll read to you the words of the Rishash, guys. This is fascinating. What are you doing over here? In other words, if they reach the age of Bageres and they're going to lose, according to Shimon Elazar, they're going to lose their nedunya. So it goes ahead and it behooves them to go ahead and get married before they reach the age of Bageres. So listen to this, guy. If I didn't see it, I wouldn't say it myself. The Rishash is found in the back of Masechta Stubis in Vilna editions, not in the Art Scroll editions. It's on page Dalet. If you have an old-fashioned Gemara, it's on page Dalet, Samiches, and it should be Dalet at the top. Baruch. You keep on going. One more, and it says Samiches on the days, right? And it said like Ketzad Hein Isis. Got it? Ketzad Hein Isis Soichris Lehem Bailam. Listen to this. Nira the Ratzah Laimar Im Lo'ir Lehem Binarusan Shenisu Lahagin. If they didn't find someone to marry when they were an iris, or they don't want to get married, the year in and they're scared, they'll get old enough. And again, according to Shimon Elazar, if you reach the age, you're gone. What should they do? Yischru Anashim, go ahead and hire men. Sheyomru, Sheyisu a son. They say they will marry them. They don't get married. Hire men, they'll say they'll marry you. In order to take the nedunya, and then they can wait until they find the right husband. Or if they want to get married. Fascinating. I tell you, if I didn't see it, I should have put this up. I should have put it up. I should have put this up. What? Rashash. I should have put this up. I had written on the side of my door. I'm Rashash. Ein Chodesh Tachas Hashemesh, right? Right? So if Shimon and Elazar is of the opinion, even if you become a Baigeres or you get married, right? Baigeres, you lose everything. So therefore, rent a husband. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Lihuna, halachas karebi, halachas like Rebbe, that you can only lose it if you're a Baigeres and married. But either one, you won't lose the Vat, you won't lose your Nedunya. They say, Rav Nachman, Yisoima, Shisi Amishna, Yisoima, Shisi Ata, Ima, Ayachia, Midaita, Yisoima, that what? That lost the father. Therefore, a mother or a brother, when they had married her off, the Kasvula b'meya, and they underwrit the Nedunya, she's able when she gets older, the reason why she can go and take it out is because she's a katana. But let's say she was a gedayla, vitra, she would be mavata and she'd lose it. So kasha, how could you say that as Baigeres she would retain her nedunya according to Rebbe, right? Rebbe said she retains the nedunya. The reason over here that she can go ahead and reclaim the nedunya more is because she was a katana. Mashma, when she's a gedayla, she's mevater on it and she can't claim it. That's more like kasha. It depends. If she was meicha, then she can go ahead and claim it. When she gets older, then what? Says Rashi. Rebbe says lo ivdu, didn't lose your kesuvos, your nedunya. Van Rav Huna Allah Kabase is speaking. The shemicha ala meiser iser nechaseha, where she goes ahead and she's making a macha on the extra tenth of the property. But the tani mastis and gedoyla vitra as a gedoyla she's mevata is bishlemichas. In other words, we said that automatically when she's a katana, her mechila is not a mechila. And therefore she's not mavata. Much change she's a gedayla. So she didn't do anything. So at that point in time she loses it. Achanami mistarba. That's the pshat in Cain. If you don't say so, kasha the Rebbe ad the Rebbe. If you don't make this chilik between macha and not a macha, we have a question Rebbe on Rebbe. Again, Rebbe says what? You don't lose your nedunya when you become a Baigeres. The Tanya Rebbe Omer, guys, bas hanizoinus mina achim. The bas that is being supported, guys. The bas is being supported by the brothers in mizoinus. Noiteles, Easter Nechasim, she gets a nedunya. Nizainus in she'ein nizainus live. Only if she's supported, but if she's not supported, not. Guys, what did we say? But she becomes a Baigeres. Everyone says she loses her mizainus, correct? Everyone says she loses the mizainus, good. But Rebbe says she retains her nedunya. Yeah. So what's Rebbe himself says? What does Rebbe say over here? A bas that is getting from the estate of the Nechasim, she would get the Nedunya. And what's the diak? Only if she is being supported by the estate in Mizainis, then she gets the Nedunya. What's the inference? If she's not being supported by the state, she would not get the Nedunya. In other words, we make one dependent upon the other. Yet over here, what are we saying? They're interdependent, right? You're losing your Mizainis, but you're retaining the Nedunya. And Rebbe said both these dinim. Again, look at the hands, right? Says Rebbe the following. Rebbe says, no mezainis, yes, nedunya. Good. Now Rebbe says, when do you get nedunya? When you get mezainis? Mashma, if there's no mezainis, there's no nedunya. So kasha Rebbe on Rebbe. Well, what's the answer? Whether we're meicha or not, that's the chilik. Says the Gemara, right? Shmami. So elalav shmamina hademachoy. Where does she retain rights to her nedunya? Is where she was meicha. Hadalay machoy. Where does she lose it? Is when she was not meicha. She didn't make a macha. And therefore she loses her nedunya. Shmamina, she was meichlet. Shmamina, we have a good raya. Amalei Ravina l'Rava, says Ravina l'Rava, Amalon Rav Ada bar Ava, Mishmech. Rav Ada said in your name, Bagra, if she comes to Baigeres, ain't it tzricha limchais. If she comes to Baigeres, she does not have to be meicha. Nisais, ain't it tzricha limchais. In other words, you do not have to, automatically you do not use losing neduna even without a macha. This is what Rav Ada said. They said in the Amalei Ravina l'Rava that Rav Ada bar Ava said in the name of Rava, guys, the following: if you're a Baigeres, you still retain a nedunya. If you're married, you don't have to make a macha. However, bogra v'nisis, those two things, tzricha place. Then you would have to be moicha. Each one individually, you wouldn't have to be moicha, but together you would. Now, miyama Rava Hachi says, did Rava really say this? But Esive Rava Rav Nachman, Yisoima, again, guys, going back above, said Rava to Rav Nachman, Yisoima she siyata ima achia midaita because v'lo b'meya machemishim zuz yechoylehim mishetagdil lahoitzim miyadam mashaverli natzi time with the katana hagedoyla vitra. So you see a gedoyla does lose it. So how can you say by Geras alone? You're telling me by Geras alone you would not lose your nedunya. You would use it in nedunya. Look at the diak. And Rav is the one who said this. V'shani la hada maichi hada la maichi. 1 second. You gave a teretz. The only reason is they retained it is because they were maicha. Mashma, they weren't maicha, they would lose it. When what? Mishe Godla, when she got older. Yet now you're saying, Rava, in your name, that by Geras, when you get older, you don't lose it. Right? That's a shot. One more time. When you get older, do you automatically lose your Geras? That's older. Do you automatically lose your dunya? Said Rava in the first case, yes, if you're not moicha. Says Rava in the second case, what? You don't lose it. What's pshat? Loi kasha, hadukam mitzah minayu, haduloi mitzah minayu. Now, what's happening is it makes a difference whether you're being supported from the estate or not being supported from the estate. Let's say you're being supported from the estate. In other words, they don't have to support you. Guys, you're a gedoyla. We learned this. As long as you're a katana or a naira, you'll be supported from the estate. As soon as you're a geras, you're gone. We learned that. Now, these brothers are being kind to her. You know what they're doing? They're giving them a sinus, right? So therefore, she's too embarrassed to go ahead, Rada, and make a macha when she got older. She figures that it's being so nice to me, right? So that's the pshat. That we say that she doesn't lose it is speaking to mitzvah minayu. They're supporting her. Since what? They're supporting her, right? She's embarrassed. And Hadloi commits minayu. The other one, where does she lose it? When she becomes a gedayla, is when she's not being supported. There's no reason, there's no svara of this embarrassment. That svara is said by the Meiri and the Ran. I found it in the Mesifta. Rashi doesn't speak it out. I was wondering the chilik. It's the Meiri and the Ran who speak out this chilik. Rav Huna Amar Rabbi. Parnasa, the parnasa meaning the nidunya is eno kitanai ksuba. It's not like the tanai in the ksuba. Now we know it's tanai ksuba, like Mizainis is tanai ksuba, but a different tanai ksuba. My eno kitanai ksuba. What do you mean that? What does that mean? If you're telling me that in dunya, if they're sold, you can collect them from there's a lien on it. The tanai ksuba loitar from mishabdi, but however tanai ksuba you can't. Mizainis is not a davar kitzur. It's a gemara in Gittin in a shaleach. Since guys, it's a davar chain like kitzur. A person doesn't know how to watch out for it. In other words, when you're going to buy something, you want some certain insurance, right? You title insurance. When you buy something, you want to make sure you're buying it, right? If it's something that's so vague, you can't possibly know. Mizainis is something that's so vague. We spoke this out, but we'll see it in Gittin. It's so vague that you can't collect from Mishubadim because the person who bought him had no way of knowing being supported and how much you're supporting. Right? Mashen came and said, Baal Choiv, you can go back to the courts and see how much liens this guy have on his property, right? And the dunya also, you can go ahead and see how much is owed. It's a set amount. It's not a set amount. It's a set amount, right? The tonight ksuba leitar mishade, my kamash v'lan, hamaisim b'chol yoyin, might see in the parnasa, they might see in the mizainis. They're not going to. We take away mishubadim for the dunya and not mizainis. So what's the chiddush of Rabbi? What's the chiddush of Huna in the name of Rabbi? Okay, the Ella, the ilu parnasa gavyan nami metaltali. The nedunya you would also collect from metaltalin. The tanai ksuba and the mekarki gavya you only collect from karko and metaltali gavya. The Rabbi idi migva gavya. Rabbi who said this, Rav Huna said in the name of Rabbi, even metaltalin you would collect from metaltalin. You would collect tanai ksuba from metaltalin because Rabbi says the Tanya. Whether it's karka, that's the fancy term for karka, the chasam shleish lemachrayas. The echem the chasam she'en lemachrayas, or whether it's what it's metatalin. Meitzil lemazan isha ulabanos. You go ahead and you would go ahead and collect mezainis and for the wife and for the daughters, for the almana and the daughters. You're very Rebbe. So what do you see? The chasam she'esh lem ein lemachrayas. That's metatalin. You would collect. So that's not the chilik that possibly exists between the dunya and the tanai ksuba. because both collecting from Talmud. Elamai Parnasa in a connect suba. What did Rav Huna mean? L'chidetanya for following brisa. Ha'omer, that guy says, Al Yezoinei b'noisav minachasav. My daughter should not be. Go ahead. My daughter should not be supported from the property. Ain't shayim lo. You don't say that. The daughters will be supported. Al Yisparnasu b'noisav minachasav. However, I don't want my daughter to have an adunya. Then shayim lo. Shal Parnasa ain't a connect suba. So Parnasa is not like a connect suba. It's worse than a connect suba. Like Suba, he cannot go ahead and say that you shouldn't be supported. Like Suba can't go against the Chachamim who gets like Suba. You can't go ahead and say that what you should be supported from the estate, but you could go ahead and say that what less Rashi. Al Yispanasu Shaimim Loi Shaparnasa ain't a chayv alav. There's no chayv to give in a dunya. We tell a guy to give in a dunya to facilitate marrying the daughter quickly, but it's not a chayv. Kitanak Suba al chayv al Yisaimim who. It's a chayv on the Yisayimim where the father did not go ahead and command them.